Let's talk about the latest royal news. Prince Philip was moved from his private hospital to St Bart's Hospital for a test with heart specialists there yesterday. And this comes at a time when, well, the reaction to Harry and Meghan's exclusive interview with Oprah Winfrey, which airs in the United States on Sunday. And the trailers have come out and it's toe-curlingly ghastly. But let's talk about all this with Rupert Bell, who's Talk Radio's royal correspondent. Good morning to you, Rupert.
Morning, Julia. Imagine you're not going to be watching then.
You're not, oh, of course I'm going to be watching. There's lots of things. Hey, I watch Matt Hancock's press conferences once a week. And those are toe-curling enough. It's part of the duty of the job. Oh, I find these people fascinating. I'm in awe. I mean, goodness me. I mean, don't tell me that somebody who goes on the radio for 3.5 hours a day isn't someone who's a bit of an egomaniac, for goodness sake. But the egomania of those people is off the scale. I mean, we know, in their defence, Meghan and Harry, we know defence that this interview was recorded a couple of weeks ago with Oprah Winfrey. It was before Prince Philip went into hospital. But the thought that Prince Philip could be really very seriously ill in hospital, I'm sorry, whatever we're hearing from the palace, we are talking about a man who's a few months shy of his 100th birthday with heart problems, and we know other infections. Anyone who goes into hospital for that length of time at that age, you're going to have to obviously be concerned about their long-term prospects. For that interview to be airing this Sunday while he is still in hospital, it just seems to me to just be beyond the pale.
It is, but I think their hands are tied. And I mean, Harry and Meghan's hands are tied because CBS have gone big on promotion and big on everything. And they have not held back in trying to trumpet. They've got this world exclusive, the first interview. So that is one of the problems that maybe Harry and Meghan may be feeling, that perhaps the timing is not the right time, particularly when suddenly we see him being moved, Prince Philip, that is, back to the St Bartholomew's Hospital, with great efforts to shield him from being seen, that clearly his condition is not progressing in the direction they had hoped. When you think there were statements coming out when he first went into the Edward VII Hospital suggesting, no, hopefully we'll be out the end of last week. Well, clearly it's not being so straightforward. And you can understand, he's 99. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter who you are, your body is not as strong as it once was. And he is one of the strongest men alive. So it is obviously a concern. But clearly, this Harry and Meghan thing, and I must admit, I'm completely sympathetic with you there, Julia. It was toe-curling, and with the James Corden thing a few days before it, the whole thing just feels like, what are they trying to do? 1 minute they don't want to be seen and heard, now they're heard everywhere. Give me a break.
I know, but again, we've said this a million times on the show. If they wanted to move to LA and just live private lives, do a bit of the charity work, and I'm sure they could make a quiet living doing something. Goodness me, he's got enough of an inheritance. But this urge to just sort of constantly be in the news, we are in Kardashian territory here. And my thing is, how much money have they got for this interview? Bearing in mind that CBS is selling just one advert break, one 30-second advert break for $200,000. There's a lot of money has been paid for this. There's a lot of publicity. They're selling international rights. Who knows who's going to air it here? Let's face it, it'll be available on the black market as soon as possible anyway. You'll be able to get hold of it. But it really is as you say, toe curling in terms of, from what we have seen, this isn't about, them talking about their charitable work or promoting a great cause. This is about them saying, oh, everyone's been horrid to us and we're victims. And at the best of times, I would find that very irritating in very, very rich, healthy young people, but who are privileged beyond all belief. But at this time, when people are on furlough, when people are struggling to pay their bills, when people have got mental health problems and stuck in their homes, and children are not getting an education, I'm sorry, it absolutely defies belief. Who on earth is doing their PR for them?
Well, clearly a very expensive PR firm who think they know what they're doing. And I've got sympathy for Harry. We know what traumas he's been through when he was a young lad, and I get all that. But to see what we had to, this sort of, I don't know, her cringing, and it just fake. It almost feels fake at times. I mean, I may be wrong, but it just is over the top. And that's what's irritating me. And I think a lot of other people. Now, I'm supposed to take a sort of unbiased approach to it. And I want to give them support, and they're entitled to their new life. But clearly, this is it shouldn't be about them. And they are not the story. They, as you quite rightly say, are a very rich couple who don't lack for anything. And yet they seem to think they are owed absolutely everything.
I just
and
think the timing and it's just the me of it. Bearing in mind also today, in the news again, their long-running legal battle between the Duchess of Sussex and the Mail on Sunday. That resumes in London as a High Court because it is the next steps in the case. I think a lot of us thought that case was over and done with.
Well, I think that was the first, wasn't it the first part of it? They got in favour of Meghan and Harry, but there was still another legal process to go through. I mean, I think it's a legal minefield. I don't quite know where it's going to end up. But again, it's just sort of symptomatic that they feel they are owed everything. Now, clearly, there are times when the press may go over the top, and I get all that. Yeah. But that's not the reason for suddenly thinking that they are owed absolutely everything.
With you all the way. I'm thinking all the listeners will be as well. Thank you very much indeed, Rupert Bell, their Talk Radio's royal correspondent. Benjamin Butterworth still with me, late editor at the iPaper. We've been talking about this all this morning. Very worrying news about Prince Philip being moved to St Bart's Hospital for heart tests. Obviously, he's now been in hospital for a considerable amount of time. Never something that's good for someone his age, just a few months shy of his 100th birthday. But the fact that we are seeing now the excerpts, the trailers for that Oprah Winfrey interview that's going to air on CBS in the United States on Sunday night, big money interviews being hawked around basically, to the highest bidder in every other country around the world. Do you think that Harry and Meghan should say, look, while his grandfather is in hospital, I mean, look, we all know what we fear at this point, that interview should be pulled? Do you think that's even possible?
I think they should say that it should be delayed, until he's out of hospital, as we all hope he will be. I'm sure if he died, it would be cancelled, but I suspect that would be the only way. And that's because when they sell their stories to Oprah Winfrey, they hand over that so that there are so many commercial powers that are making this decision on their behalf. And so for a couple that wanted to have control over their lives, it's big bosses business in the US who have control of their story now, and whether it clashes with Harry's granddad being poorly.
Yeah, they handed over power from the palace to the power to the TV executives. Let's talk about this with royal biographer, eventually written biography of Prince Harry himself, Angela Levin, who joins us once again. Good morning to you, Angela.
Good morning.
Very worrying news, first of all, about Prince Philip. Duke of Edinburgh is now at one of the world's largest specialist cardiac sites at St Bartholomew's Hospital in London. He was transferred yesterday from the private King Edward VII Hospital, where he's been treated for an infection. Obviously, a few months shy of his 100th birthday, there've got to be alarm bells ringing, concern about his long-term health now.
Yes, of course it has. I mean, he's had heart issues for about 15 years, and in 2011 he had a blocked coronary artery, and he had a stent in. And for people who are much older, if they have an infection, it takes toll on the body, so it could affect his heart. However, I think there is a brightish light, because if they didn't think that the hospital could do something for him positively, they wouldn't have sent him there. I mean, it is the best hospital in the land for coronary issues. They've got amazing machinery, they've got amazing consultants there who know every sort of niche and corner of heart problems, whereas the hospital he's been in, George VII, is a very, very good private hospital and can't provide those skills.
Well, I'd like to point out, we say King Edward VII, but I'd like to point out, it's really interesting though, you know what, I mean, I'm genuinely, I'm not a fan of the royal family using private healthcare when I think they should be supporting the NHS. They're clapping for it, they should be using it. If it's good enough for us, it should be good enough for them as well. But I always think it's interesting, in an emergency, when things are really tough, you want to be in an NHS hospital, not a private hospital in this country, which tells you quite a lot. But this thing, the fact that we know that, although we didn't find out until a day later, that Prince Philip walked into King Edward's Hospital all those days ago, but he was transferred, it would appear, by ambulance from the hospital, and was not, the police cars moved to block the entrance so he couldn't be seen transferring to St Bart's. That's going to raise more concerns, isn't it? The fact that he's not actually been seen.
Well, of course it is, because whatever they've given him for this infection hasn't yet cleared up. and an ongoing infection can cause him to feel much worse. And so I'm sure in the hospital they will see how to do that properly. It's obviously unusual and chronic, and we hope that the consultants there will find a way around.
Right.
I think if they thought that it wasn't going to help him, they would have sent him home to be quiet and peaceful and to be with the Queen. But they haven't done that, and he obviously wanted to have this done. He could have refused.
Yeah.
So there is a positive outlook there.
That's a very good point. I have to say, though, there's one thing we do know about Prince Philip over the years is he doesn't like a fuss, and he doesn't like his personal life being talked about. So he'd be absolutely hating every single second of this. And apologies to him for this. But we know someone else who does love having everyone talking about them all the time, and that it would appear to be Meghan and, well, it would seem these days, Prince Harry, a man who wanted to protect his privacy and that of his wife and a baby boy, and now a kid on the way, but obviously quite happy when the price is right to sell their soul to Netflix and indeed to Oprah Winfrey on CBS. We saw first clips yesterday, and we discussed on the show yesterday, of this trailer for the interview. We didn't hear too much. It was more Oprah Winfrey reacting and just a few lines from Prince Harry, going further than what he said to James Corden at that interview last week. But it looks excruciating. It looks toe curling to me. Do you think that actually this, given that his grandfather is in hospital, that this is going to create an incredibly big backlash, and actually this has been a terrible move for their PR?
Yes, it's absolute nonsense for them to want to attack, and cruel, but want to attack Harry's family in that way. Harry should stand up to it, and I think he should have said to Meghan, criticise whatever you like, but please don't attack my family. Now, all the comments they've said, which have been hugely rude to the Queen, are things that they've wanted. Their team of 12 PRs wouldn't dream of doing something that they disapproved of or was exaggerated. The fact that they can do good work all over the world, the fact that she's wrong, that she's got control over the word royal out of America, all that is nasty. I think it's also ludicrous to say that Meghan is like Diana. I mean, Diana was an innocent girl brought up in an aristocratic home. She knew the ropes. Yeah. Meghan was in her mid-30s. She'd crawled up a very difficult ladder in show business, got only so far, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Exactly.
You say that, I wonder again, if you're used to being a celebrity, you just don't realise the unremitting attention you get as a royal. I mean, I just feel sorry for anyone in that role. But the thing is, what's being emerging again from this interview is, I mean, we can see that Meghan, she's doing a lot of the old holding the bump, and she's wearing a $4,700 black Armani dress.
Yes.
They're in the garden of their £11 million mansion.
Yes.
When people are really struggling around the world.
No, it's in their garden. It's in a friend's garden, actually.
I said, the reports I've got is that it was in the garden of their mansion. But who knows? Irrelevant. They have an £11 million mansion. It's the site of this incredibly lucky, healthy, young, fabulously wealthy couple sitting there in a expensive designer dress and designer suit and things, complaining about their lot in life. I think it's absolutely ludicrous, especially when so many people have been ill with COVID, have no jobs, and all the rest. It's extraordinary that they said almost unsurvivable. Yes.
Right, but they've survived brilliantly. Meghan has got a whole new life. She's as rich as goodness knows what. She's one of the most famous women in the land. She's got contracts worth millions with Netflix and Spotify.
Yes, what was almost unsurvivable? What, you were criticised in the media because you were hypocritical? I mean, I don't know what's unsurvivable about that.
Yeah, but she does this part victim, part power woman, which is a very peculiar thing. She goes into this, and you could see yesterday her lips were pouting, her eyes looked a bit watery. She looked so serious, as if she was going to a funeral.
Can I just say, it's better acting than I saw from her in Suits, but there we are.